Greetings YouTube, Tim Kirk here, and I want to talk about post-apocalyptic role-playing games. Most notably, I'm going to cover a variety of them over the course of several videos because I tried one video and I just couldn't say enough about certain games and get all the games that I wanted to talk about. Don't really consider these reviews, they're more just my musings and opinions on the game. I have run most of these at some point. I have not played them in many cases because I'm usually the GM of the group. And so that does color my view a little bit. This video is inspired in part because I had a successful but unfulfilling, for me, the GM, game I ran that was post-apocalyptic Saturday. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean the game was bad. It just meant it didn't seem to click for me and hit the right notes that made me excited about it. On the other hand, part of the reason I'm doing this video goes back to the fact that the second role-playing game I ever played was Gamma World 2nd Edition, which I picked up at Walden Books with my allowance one day. Now, post-apocalyptic role-playing games can vary a great bit. Not only do you have their level of grittiness to gonzo-ness, you also have what kind of apocalypse it was, whether it gives you tools for changing those elements, and so on. Now, my favorites aren't necessarily going to hit high notes on everything. It's not going to give you every single option. Neither are my the ones I like least going to, not give you those things. In fact, some of them have some very good uses, and in fact, I think if I could rip out gut here and a gut there, I could have the ideal post-apocalyptic game. And there are some that I have that I consider pretty much as close to my ideal as somebody else is going to write. Starting with, this time, we're going to talk about Atomic Highway. Atomic Highway is by Colin Chapman of Radioactive Ape Designs, and he produced it fairly quickly from what I understand. And it is a very light game system that uses D6s as a dice pool. You roll the number of D6s equal to your stat. You look for the number 6. If you get one, you've succeeded at a basic cinematic action hero task. Now understand, that's what basic means in this game. One success means you have succeeded at a task an action hero would do fairly regularly. More successes, more sixes, mean you have succeeded better, or you have, there are cases where you need more because you're doing something way, way over the top, action movie-wise. Like jumping a pit of flaming alligators while shooting at them with your slingshot on your motorcycle that's missing its back wheel. Crazy, crazy stuff is possible. But that's just an example. That's not necessarily what the game tells you to do. It's just, up there in terms of difficulty level. Now, the basic default of the game is an assumption of technology that is fairly recent. That is, there's no ray guns, there's no big changes from the world we know. Although some of the technology looks a little retro, like the cars, like 70s muscle cars are really a big thing kind of in the look of the art. It doesn't necessarily say that's all there is, it gives examples, but you could use anything. And the game is simple enough that I could plug in higher technology if I really wanted to. The game has fortune points. The fortune points are useful for adjusting when the dice screw you or when the dice benefit people other than you in ways you don't want. And that's important because the game, despite being an action movie kind of centered game or an action TV series centered game, the weapons can kill you and kill your character dead very quickly because they are very lethal in the hands of somebody who does well or is skilled with the weapon. So, and fortune points allow you to reduce damage or avoid getting hit at all. To a certain extent. There are limits mechanically, and there are options in the game for quite a variety of different ways of using those points for different purposes, including plot twists, which I've always kind of liked the idea of plot twists. Not necessarily rewriting what has happened, but just a little plot twist like, that slaver is really my brother, so he doesn't want to cut my friend's throat because I'm begging him not to. Those kinds of little tiny plot twists that don't necessarily suddenly rewrite the nature of the game, but do give you a little bit of a leveraging of it for your players. The thing about the game is it's only been produced one book besides its one core book and one supplement. The supplement is Irradiated Freaks, and it basically allows you to turn up the gonzo-ness a little bit by giving you more animals to be mutant animals, because that's in the core book, mutant plants, and allowing you to do gonzo mutations, which gonzo mutations basically means instead of mutations following certain family lines in terms of like beetles and bugs get certain mutations and plants get certain mutations, now anybody can get any mutation for the most part, and that makes, you know, humans with healing fruit growing off their fingertips, for example, and other really crazy ideas possible. Now, the flaws of the game is that it's quite short. It is available free in PDF legally. Colin Chapman has basically said, you know, here you go, I made my initial investment and I'm happy, so here you go play. There is supposed to be another book coming out called Twisted Armageddons, and Twisted Armageddons is supposed to detail alternate apocalypses, which means not just this kind of generic we had some sort of war, nuclear war perhaps, or asteroid hit or something, but very specific tinkering with the apocalypses, so that you might have armies of robots or aliens or whatever that have had to do with the apocalypse and around. But the book is not out yet, so, and I don't unfortunately have an estimated time that he's going to get it done, because life and solo writers, me and him, we get that sometimes things happen and you can't get it done right now, and it may be a year before things straighten out enough so you can sit down and write the book you were wanting to write. Now, there are problems with the game beyond, you know, its fairly thin, you know, nature. If you're wanting a 300-page tome, that's not it. You don't need a 300-page tome, in my opinion, for some games. This is not one of them. It definitely couldn't have used it. It could have used some more charts. It can use a slight tweak of experience points where your characters don't advance quite as fast, because I found they advanced a little too fast. And that made it a little bit harder to challenge the player characters with some things that I still would have liked for them to explore, like slavers instead of giant mutant ants, you know, slavers instead of, because they're both there in my setting that I used for it. And there's no tools for building technology outside of its technological assumption base, which would have been nice, you know, just even if it's just, here you go, here's some ideas. Now, it's easy enough to say, okay, I want a laser rifle to be as lethal as a large caliber sniper rifle, and go, bam, here you go. Easy to do. Same thing with new vehicles. Bam, new vehicle, easy to do. And that's one of the reasons I like this game. It's quite fun. Mutants do, as I said, you've got mutant animals. If with the supplement you have mutant plants. There are human mutants, and mutations in the core book tend to be fairly mild. Now, there are some extreme ones it gives you examples of, but most of them are not quite the superpower level. Some of them push that a little bit, but it's not until you get the supplement that you can take it and go woohoo and push it up to 11. And that's okay, because the game survives being pushed up to 11 if you want to. And it can also be pushed the other way, although I'm not sure you need a book to tell you to go, okay, tone it down a little bit. Atomic Highway is, as I said, I'm going to repeat again, free in PDF, at least the core book. I don't know about the supplement, I haven't checked. Colin Chapman's a pretty decent chap. Chapman, get it? No, yeah, horrible pun, I know. But he's a decent guy. I've talked to him quite a bit. I really enjoy the book and its usefulness. I would recommend it if that's what I were doing, but instead take a look, see if you like it. I've seen places where people have complained that it's not easy enough it's too hard to challenge your players, it's not easy enough to hurt them, and I've seen the opposite, that it's too lethal. So the truth is somewhere in the middle, and you need to find that truth that works for you. Because in general, that's how all role-playing games are. You know, you find what elements work for you and in what amount, and that's usually the game you like. For me, that's what I did. Atomic Highway is my top current pick for post-apocalyptic role-playing games, because it allows me to have a game that's, you know, not so gonzo, or push it up to 11 and do gonzo if I want, but it's not required. It doesn't, you know, require character types that have to be too crazy or anything. So take a look, see if you like it, and next time I will probably talk about the one that's just slightly behind Atomic Highway, and that's Gamma World. Gamma World has had several editions, and so it will probably be a long video where I talk about my favorite versions of Gamma World, the ones I have, because some of them are not my favorites, and why I wish they would do a new Gamma World, hopefully using something resembling the Mutant Future Rules or similar stripped down, but very good post-apocalyptic game.